People Cubs, Mrs. Hoffer here again to help you with this week's math lessons. Friends, after today's lesson, you should know how to compare the weight of objects. You will understand how to describe weight using the terms heavier, lighter, and equal to, or about the same in weight. And you'll be able to compare objects' weights to see which object is heavier, which object is lighter, or if the objects are equal to or about the same in weight. Friends, today, like I just mentioned, we're going. Friends, today we are going to be talking about a whole new concept of measurement called weight. When we think of measuring weight, we often think about weight as standard forms of measurement, like weight of our own bodies, such as how many pounds this man we see on the screen might be in body weight. But people are far from the only thing that we can use to measure weight, Keeble Cubs. And we can use plenty of non standard forms of measurement to look at weight too. Like we just mentioned, weight isn't just our body, friends. Weight is how heavy an object is. So the mass of any object, like all the objects we see on the screen, the feather, both the containers of peanut butter and the brick, all have different weights of their own. And like we can compare length and height, friends, we can also compare the weights of objects. When we measure and compare the weights of objects, friends, we use words like heavier to describe objects that have more weight and lighter to describe objects that have less weight. When objects are the same in weight, Keeble Cubs, we say they are equal to each other in weight or about the same in weight, like these two jars of peanut butter on the screen. Something we must remember when comparing the weight of objects, friends, is that just because an object is bigger in size does not mean that it is heavier. The size of an object and its weight are not the same thing, Keeble Cubs. For example, the biggest object on the screen in front of you is in fact the feather. However, the heaviest object on the screen is the brick. Weight has to do a lot with what the object is made out of, friends. So that's why the material of the brick that is heavier would be the heavier object than the feather, which is so light it is practically weightless. Friends, for our main activity today, we're going to be Friends, for our main activity today, we are going to move on to weight comparison. I'm going to collect some everyday objects from around my home and use my hands as my non standard form of measurement to do our weight comparison for the different objects, just like we see this woman doing in front of us on the screen with the apple and the orange. Using your hands, Cable Cubs, is a fantastic way to compare the weights of objects because it's pretty easy to feel which object is heavier and which object is lighter. Friends, do you notice how the woman on the screen is holding one object higher and one object lower than the other? That's because weight has to do a lot with something called force, which you will learn about as you get older in school, Keeble Cubs. But basically, weight is the force of the object towards the earth. So that means it's the push or pull of the object towards the ground, Keeble Cubs. This is important to know because the heavier the object, the more it pushes towards the ground. So that's why the apple in this picture being is being held lower than the orange because it's heavier than the orange is. So because it is heavier, it is lower to the ground because it has more weight. Friends, when I start comparing the objects from around my home, you will notice the objects that are heavier in weight are being held lower, and the object that is lighter in weight is being held higher. Keeble Cubs, do you think there will be a difference in level in my hands when the objects are equal in weight? No, that's right, friends. When objects that are equal in weight are being compared, you will notice my hands are at the same level. Now, let's get started.